Okay, hi guys, it's Susan and Adam. And today we want to talk about stem cells. Adam, how many times have you had stem cell replacement therapy?
Two different times.
Okay, so Adam got hurt in 2012, and you said you heard about it already. Well, obviously when George Bush talked about it, but
Yeah.
In the hospital, 2012, when you hurt yourself, you already knew that was an option.
Yeah, a lot of the people, because I was at a large spinal cord rehabilitation center, so there were a lot of people with various different levels of injury and, spinal cord injury. And so, it was common talk around that hospital, because everyone's talking about what they're going to do when they get out of the hospital. And, everyone most people want to find a way to magically cure themselves in the shortest period of time possible and pretend it was all a bad dream and just, snap out of it and jump up and run around. And
yeah,
and it's
great.
Maybe yeah, and we're in such a state of denial when we come out of the hospital that we want so badly for that to be true, even though even if we're not seeing any examples of it necessarily. But I think a lot of people hold out hope for what stem cell treatment can do for them.
Yeah. How many of your comrades that are in wheelchairs do you think that have had stem cell replacement therapy?
Good question. I think, more than I realize, because a lot of people have done it over the years and don't necessarily talk about it or bring it up. In a format where everyone is like coming together more, maybe that would come to light and be easier to search everybody if everyone's chimed in and maybe answer that question in a questionnaire or a survey or a poll in the group or something. But personally, people that I know, it's only just a handful of people.
Okay. It seems like it's such a broad topic, and some of your friends have flown across the country. Some have done it as close to home as here in Colorado, in your local area. And I think, what we want to bring to you all today is just kind of what's been Adam's experience. Why did he choose to do it twice? Has he overall been happy with the fact that he did it, and why? So I had asked him, what's the difference between embryonic stem cell replacement and just using your own?
Right. Well, to my knowledge, those are the two only types of stem cell treatments. Embryonic stem cells taken from, can be taken from an embryo, and I believe one embryo can treat like 150,000 people.
Oh my goodness.
But it's done in various places under various conditions. It's not very well regulated.
And is that legal here in the U.S.?
It's not legal. It was made illegal, I think, earlier in the decade or in the century. In the early 2000s. But maybe it was earlier than that. But anyway, it was made illegal a couple decades ago, and hasn't been approved by the FDA since. So a lot of the research that would otherwise be happening with it has been halted for a very long time at this point. And I think that may have had some impact on how the rest of the world viewed it and how much other countries pursued it as well, because it seems like the only places that are offering it are a little bit unique and one-off in their approach, and you're taking whatever protocol that they've personally come up with, and it's not something that's been developed by a large, large bodies.
Well, what I find fascinating about the way you went about it is, number one, I think you're very bold with your healing process and taking your own responsibility, and two, sometimes really taking some chance. But there's that side of you too that does your work and you educate yourself on not doing something that might be too risky that might carry you for a loop. So as I understand it, how you approached it was, didn't necessarily want to go big and go with the embryonic and a lot of stem cells, because you educated yourself to know, well, there's not a lot of proof, there's not a lot of results that show that those actual cells would target the areas that you wanted them to.
Right.
And you might have a what did you call it, a mutation or something somewhere that you wouldn't want. So then you kind of honed back and you met a doctor that seemed to really have thought through his approach, but combined other methods with it to kind of give you maybe more success in multiple areas. And so I want to ask you about that, because you used your own stem cells, right?
Right.
You used your own plasma.
Right.
He had come up with a combination of using a way to heal you faster, adding some nutrients and some violet lights and different things in combination of maybe giving you more success for a smaller amount of cells, to just kind of see what would happen. Am I correct?
Yeah, yeah.
So I want to hear from you, like a little bit about if I was somebody brand new watching this and I wanted to know your experience, why you did what you did. Let's kind of hear the process that you went through.
Okay. Well, originally, I didn't hear of any places in Colorado. So, there's a place, at least one place in India, and then a place in South America, and I believe a place in Scandinavia at the time. And they're all like very expensive, tens of thousands of dollars, with a lot of travel for someone that isn't in robust health,
Right.
And so it wasn't too hard to come to the conclusion that there's a strong chance that I wouldn't see the gains that would match the amount of resources and effort that it would take for me to make it happen. And I searched for people. I tried to find people that had done it and had made dramatic improvements, and CNN actually did a special on a place in India while I was in the hospital. So I was all over that, watching that, because I just had to know what was out there for spinal cord injury, because you hear about it and it sounds like something that might help you dramatically change your recovery in a very short period of time. So obviously, it's hard not to search for that, even if there aren't any glaring examples of it. But
so your experience was, you did it the first time, and you had to wait a year for your blood work to be up to par, and for you to get healthy enough. You put on a diet of red meat and vegetables, so that your blood could be of composite that was strong enough for you to withstand it.
I needed calorie-rich and nutrient-rich food, so that I could gain weight and have all the nutrients that I need without eating anything else, because I couldn't metabolize very much. I was very emaciated from all the pressure wounds I'd had, and was in worse shape than when I originally left the hospital, 2 years later. So
obviously you found a doctor that was concerned with your overall health.
Right.
That was pretty aware of the fact that you needed to be healthy, you need to be strong. Did you do anything previous to it to get your body in shape for it, like physically?
Yeah, well, being an athlete and or having the mindset of an athlete, I guess, I've just always wanted to do whatever I could possibly find to do to make myself, or to progress, to make any progress anywhere I can find it.
So that included like, were you stretching tendons and making sure that you had enough flexibility so that when you got them, you weren't starting completely from scratch and you could kind of catapult yourself into potentially building muscle movement?
Right.
Like physically, were there things that you thought about weeks in advance? Like, oh, I better move my legs and stretch this or that.
I would just do everything I could. It was still during a time where, I didn't have anything at home that I could necessarily work out with. I was going to therapy and getting stronger in therapy, but
and at that point, maybe you didn't really know what to expect the first
right.
time.
I was going through a time frame where what I was able to access and do in therapy like really ramped up during that same time frame, coincidentally, and it all just kind of went together. I started doing more therapy. I started eating more, and then I'd get a burger and then I'd get a double burger and then, and then I'd need another meal later in the day. I just recently during COVID, I was down to one solid meal a day, and I'm a lot more hungry than that right now, these days.
Well, that's good.
So,
but you kind of knew intuitively, like, I got to get strong for this so that I can really.
Yeah, I knew I needed to do everything I could, and I wanted to do it as fast as I could, to get things up to speed, to get my labs where they needed to be, so that I didn't have a wound or a injury or something else that stem cells would end up going to work on instead,
So the procedure, did you have any choices between the different types of procedures? Because I know you had a pretty invasive, it can be a little bit invasive, right? What's it like to go through that? What do they do?
It was, okay, so there are 3 different ways to inject the platelet-rich plasma into my body to try to address my spinal cord injury site. One is epidural at the base of the spine, which and then I should probably pause it.
Okay.
Epidural, local.
Okay, so you had the option to have it administered a few different ways.
Yeah.
And one was the epidural.
One was the epidural. So the platelet-rich plasma injection. There were 3 ways to receive the injection. One was epidural at the base of the spine, which is a pretty long needle going up into the spine from the base. And then one was local, so that would be a needle going directly into the injury site at C4 into the spinal column and injecting the plasma directly into the spinal column, which has a pretty small margin of error. And the third, which was the most passive way to receive stem cells, other than, the most passive way is to hang it in an IV bag and put it, just put it right back into your own bloodstream. But
I thought, isn't the central nervous system like kind of independent of your blood? It's like its own nervous system.
It is, unless something passes that barrier.
Oh, right.
Right.
Okay.
So when epidural can do that, a local, injection can do that, and
they're assuming if you put it into your bloodstream, it would transfer through as well.
Yes, but with a much less likelihood of concentrating in the spot that you want to concentrate in.
Got you.
So the epidural seemed very invasive to be at the opposite end of my spine.
Yeah.
And then the local seemed a little too risky for, I trusted my doctor But that was a little, I wasn't quite ready to jump on that. And, I definitely considered it, spent a lot of time considering it. But the way that I did it with the intranasal injection, although in some ways perhaps it's the most unpleasant,
It's a little safer.
is probably the safest way to get the most stem cells as close to my injury site as possible.
Good to know. Okay. So you did that and that wasn't fun. You had to hang upside down.
Oh man, almost. My head was upside down. So I was laying on my back on a mat, examination table basically, and hanging my head all the way straight back off the table, which is kind of hard when you're fused C3 to C7. I'm not terribly flexible in that direction. And so I laid my head back off the table. And then, once he's made the concoction with the plasma, there's about 7 to 10 cc's that goes in actually either side, either nostril, and not into the nostril. So the needle goes, it enters the nasal tissue pretty low. Like you'd think maybe it entered the tissue further up in your nasal cavity, but the needle goes in fairly low, and then it goes up through the tissues up next to your eye.
Wow.
And not close to your eye, but pretty far up. And so because you're laying upside down, the slow injection of that into your upper nasal cavity kind of percolates further and further what would otherwise be upward in your nasal cavity. And it's already, it basically is making its way into your brain chemistry because of its proximity.
Wow. So are you feeling this shot, or do they give you general anesthesia, or how does that work?
Let's see. I don't think I did.
It's a good sign that you don't remember.
I don't think I did any local anesthesia.
Oh.
I probably took an opiate probably at that time, like a single dose for that.
So I have a question. So the plasma has the stem cells in it, and that's what it is, or do they add them together? Where do the stem cells come from?
The stem cells come from the cumulative effect of being in the hyperbaric chamber. Okay. So you're spending, not consecutive, but a continual schedule of days in the chamber, no less than 2 a week, optimally. And there's a little bit of a discussion over whether going every single day would actually help, or if there's diminishing returns there, or, the person I was working with was under the persuasion that 2 to 3 a week was optimal.
Okay, so your scenario that you did, you had to have your own plasma plus a hyperbaric chamber, and that plasma and the combination with the oxygen-rich tank with pressure that would just like saturate your body in oxygen, right, would be what would produce the stem cells that would heal and target an area in your body which needed healed. Right. Is that the theory?
Long story short, after 15 rounds in the hyperbaric chamber, the concentration of stem cells is 8 times normal. Okay. In the blood, generally in the blood.
That's so cool.
So if you draw a large amount of the blood and then centrifuge the plasma out of it, you get the stem cells in that plasma.
I got you. Okay.
And so you have a concentration. So it was concentrated by 8 times, and then it's reduced to the plasma. So then it's multiplied that many more times, concentration-wise.
So then every time you get out of the hyperbaric chamber, do you feel different, or you just don't really notice an effect?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I definitely notice it right away when I'm in the chamber.
You feel better.
I feel better, but I have, let's see, there's this, for me, this just kind of general feeling of ease, and relaxation in the chamber, because I guess maybe because my body's sensing the fact that it's in a completely oxygen-rich environment, and it has access to so much, there's so much ATP production, so much oxygen uptake, that a lot of healing can happen in that short period of time. And you can kind of get a sense of that,
Wow.
it's almost like,
it's like intuitively you took like a Superman.
yeah, but it's not so much energizing as it is like meditating or taking B vitamins. It's like the kind of thing that just really brings a calm over you, and any agitation, hyper activity in the body seems to like really calm down. And
but again, this isn't like, you wouldn't fly to India and them necessarily say, okay, we're putting it into your bloodstream and then you get in a hyperbaric chamber. It was just the combination of things that your doctor did for you. This isn't like everywhere, right?
I'm not familiar, I've never seen an embryonic stem cell, a protocol that anyone was doing that also involved in a hyperbaric chamber.
Okay. So then you feel like you've done this twice. The second time you did it was how many years after the first?
They were within a little over 2 years of each other.
Okay. And you felt that you definitely had gains in your mobility, your sensation. Like, where did you feel gains?
Well, the first time I had a lot of upper body gains, because that was a point in time where I was in a very steep curve in terms of building strength and being able to take on more resistance, and gaining more range of motion and being able to just do more physically with my upper body. So I would have been in that curve whether I'd done the stem cells or not. I was definitely already in that basic like trajectory, but I did improve a lot during that time, and it was concurrent with the stem cells and the hyperbaric chamber. And, I did improve a lot in a fairly short period of time. Like, that was in a time period where I started therapy 2 years out and literally did not miss a day of therapy for almost 3 years. Thanks. But, part of going to therapy and PT, a lot of people know this or have experienced this, that if you go to PT and OT like at the hospital and they can't demonstrate progress, then they have a hard time getting a justification for you continuing to come to therapy. And a lot of people get sent home. And so I knew that was a possibility. So that further hardened my resolve to try to make gains every week. But I literally did make gains every week for more than a couple years straight. So I was doing everything I could. So it's hard to say which did what. But so the first time I did it, I was in the upper curve of my upper body, and then 2015 I started 3 years out of my injury. I started doing more stuff on the Galileo tilt table. And that I started out with a functional electric stim bike, and I kind of overdid it. I was doing E-stim on my legs to try to keep muscle on my legs, but I was doing it for 3 or 4 hours at a time because,
and why would that be detrimental?
Because so when you're running an FES bike, there's certain muscles that are firing, like your glutes are firing, your quads are firing, your hamstrings are firing in a, in a concerted way. Like there's a crank position sensor that knows which muscle to stimulate to create what contraction at what point in the pedal stroke on both sides all the time. But those are the only 3 muscles that are firing, right? So only there's several different glute muscles, right? And only the one you're putting the electrodes on, or possibly 2 of them, are firing. So you don't have all the proprioceptive muscles that come in and support your joints and make everything track properly.
So
I basically
have
So
Detrimental compensation.
yeah, so I wore down the coating on the wearing surface of my right hip. That was later revealed in
good to know.
Yeah, in X-rays that I had taken.
So I just have a quick question, and then we'll start wrapping this up. But after your accident, I know you had 8 stage 4 wounds, and it was hard for you to really even move much for a couple of years until those healed. But when you were injured, like if I'm looking at your upper body right now, what were you able to do? Could you only move your head and you couldn't move your arms at all, or did you have a little bit of shoulder mobility?
So when I first came out of the hospital, when I was 3 months out from my injury, I was on a chest strap because if I leaned forward at all, I would fall on my lap and have to wait for somebody to come get me up out of my lap. Because I had, I definitely had no trunk muscles to sit back with, no back extensor muscles, and then I didn't have any muscles to like drive my elbows down. Obviously, not my hands, but I also didn't have strength in my elbows to push myself back. So
did you fall forward because of the weight of your head just took you?
Well, if I just leaned forward enough and lost my balance,
so you could lean.
All I could do was move my head, really.
Oh, okay.
That's all I could do. I had traps, so I could shrug.
But you weren't able to do this or talk with your hands or drive or use your fingers.
So I was on a chest strap, and then with my right arm, I could lift my right arm halfway to my shoulder, and I could lift my left arm to my shoulder. And those are the 2 things I could do with my upper body, other than shrug my shoulders. And neither one of those could I do against resistance.
Okay, so I guess my point in saying this is very important in that your will to survive just by recovering your wounds for 2 years is something to just, be said for itself. But then the fact that you know your body so well now, 8 years out, and you know that you're continuing to make gains 8 years out and further, and the fact that you're still excited about going to therapy and working out every day and getting stronger and stronger. I'm just wanting you to give the audience an idea of 8 years out, you are now still making gains. You have, just as of a year or 2 years ago, been able to swim in the pool by yourself, unassisted.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to be around, but you're completely free, understanding proprioception, able to move across the pool doing laps, right? Like with stimulating walking without gravity. And that your hopes for continuing to recover and becoming stronger and stronger are unending, right? Like, am I right in saying that?
I feel that way. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's huge hope, right? To know that the brain can regenerate, your body can figure out still after paralysis how to learn, regain movement, strength, function, that by putting the effort in every day, you are palpably seeing rewards in your whole life. Because now you were able to travel to Mexico and you're able to help Tanel, your wife, transfer you. Right. And your life has just improved, right?
Absolutely. My life keeps getting better because of the improvements I've been able to make.
Because of your effort, because of your effort to continue to work out and to make gains.
So it's not all about whether I can go from doing absolutely being able to do nothing with my body to jumping up and running around. There's so many benefits to making small improvements, and some big improvements come along the way, but as long as you persist and keep moving forward, then
you're becoming more and more independent. You can drink out of a can, you can feed yourself, you can use your phone. Right. You're now wanting to get a mountain bike and a car. Adam just doesn't stop. So yeah, I mean, that's what we want to embrace you all in is working out every day with us for 20 minutes, mind, body, spirit, in all the areas of your body. And to understand, stem cells helped in this arena. However, had you not had the attitude and the aptitude to know that you had to partake in that and keep working out so that those benefits could sink in, it's not a magic bullet, and it's not necessarily something that you're going to feel or notice right away. Am I correct?
Yeah. I agree, absolutely. You have to be in optimum shape for the stem cells to reach beyond, what might be ailing you in the short term and actually go to work on that injury that may have been, especially if it's not right after your injury, it may have been reprioritized. It might be lower down on the list, and the only way to make that happen is to be proactive.
So we just wanted to give you all an idea of Adam's research, what kind of he considered before getting the procedure done, and you would love to have so many people give their feedback on what their experiences have been, because there are some things to be careful of. We don't want you to get infections. We don't want you to maybe take a super big chance on something when there might be other options available to maybe get some help here in our own country with some more safe measures around us. But so anyway, please make comment, and do you have anything else you want to add?
I think people should pursue their self-education of stem cells and following the developments with it and seeing what might work for them. And I think it's something that on some level, a lot of people stand to gain a lot from, whether it's dramatic improvement or whether it's extremely helpful in the recovery.
Yes, and regardless, you have to make an effort in it, your own recovery. Okay, well, thanks everyone, and we'll talk to you soon.